More and more college students are turning to internships in order to gain experience while still in school. But what's the process between applying, securing, and completing one? This is Education Chat's 8th episode of Season 5. What's an internship and how do I get one? Hello, everyone. My name is Natalie Hinton, and I am your host for Education Chat, a podcast by students for students in the Inland Empire. Approximately 40 to 60% of college students complete an internship during their undergraduate career. In this day and age, internships are starting to matter now more than ever. They allow students to discover new passions, learn how to thrive in a workplace environment, and can even lead to post-grad job opportunities. There are internships available for almost every career path, and they each have their own unique structure that allows students to gain experience in a low-stakes environment. But for many, the entire cycle of internships may seem daunting. Maybe you yourself attempted to get an internship this summer but found no luck, or you just completed one, or you have never even considered the idea of securing one. No matter your involvement with internships, we're prepared to help you better understand with our own anecdotes. That's why in this extra long episode of Education Chat, our guest and myself will be diving into all things relating to internships. From the process of applying to interviewing to then thriving in a new position, we will be discussing our own times and comparing and contrasting our different experiences. Joining me today is Itzel Monarrez, an incoming Master's of Quantitative Finance student from Yucaipa, California. With 2 internships under her belt in both sales and legislation, and more coming in her future, Itzel brings experience to the table that differs from my own. Thank you so much for joining me today, Itzel.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So I'd love for you to introduce yourself really quick to our audience.
Okay, so I went to YHS, Yucaipa High School. From there, I went to UCSD. I did all 4 years undergrad there. I recently graduated 2 weeks ago with my Bachelor's of Science in Econ and another Bachelor's of Science in Business Psych. And then I will be continuing school one more year, so I will be doing my master's this fall and I'll graduate next summer.
Well, congratulations on finishing your bachelor's. That's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you did lots of internships during your undergrad, so I kind of want to know what internships were you a part of and what were your responsibilities for them?
I worked for the County of San Diego. This was like a legislative internship where the interview process was very interesting. I found this on Handshake, and Handshake was just like a website given by my school, and they were like, a lot of people um, post jobs here. You could look into it. It's very like student friendly. And I at first was skeptical about it, but the 2 internships I've gotten have been from Handshake. So I've had luck in that. I know there's a lot of mixed feelings about Handshake, but if it works for you, I say go for it. One internship I did have was the legislative internship with the County of San Diego. And basically my responsibilities there were to assist so the district, I was part of District 2. San Diego has 5 districts. Um, and basically, we would work with the supervisor in handling like problems with the constituents, the people in the community. For example, I assisted in developing community outreach projects, and I drafted proclamations and letters of recognition for like the organizations a part of District 2. It was really interesting because I got to work with a lot of people in the city, and they would come to me with questions. And I learned more about San Diego as a whole and what we can do and can't do. Um, so that was really fun. It was a 125-hour internship, so as long like it would however long it took you to complete it, that's how long it took. For me, it was 3 months. Um, and I really enjoyed my time there. The second internship I got was at a financial company because it mostly aligned with my what I was looking for in terms of work and career goals. And that one, I started off as a sales intern, and I also did a lot of wealth management. I got a bunch of exposure because I would work with the financial advisors within the office. But mostly my job there as a sales intern was our company had like we had a bunch of events and workshops and webinars focused on educating people more about their finances in regards to like retirement or college planning, buying a house, wedding, like when you get married and you merge your assets. So when we had people that were interested in ordering like our books or reports or had come to our events or signed up for them, I would reach out and call them and either invite them to feature events as well if they had already gone to one like a while ago and like form a relationship, kind of nurture like, hey, where are you? Um, I know you know us. We have more events going on, like different topics, of course, and if they were interested and also needed help finding a financial advisor or wealth advisor, I would set an appointment. I would give them a call and ask if they wanted to meet with any of our advisors. So basically, my like I was selling
Mhm.
there were free consultations, appointments to our financial advisors, but it was kind of getting people like our retention rate. Like, oh, you came to our retirement by design workshop. Do you want to come to our Social Securities webinar? And like nurture relationships to eventually, hopefully, grow our client base. So those two were my biggest internships in college.
Yeah, that sounds
What
like
about you?
yeah, so technically, a lot of people don't know this, but education chat kind of started out as an internship where it's just like kind of something where you're like able to take over the podcast and then go into it and kind of make it something new. Because it previously was for my mentor, Alyssa, and another host, Alicia. They were making education chat. And then I came on board as they both went on different paths and were doing different things. And I was able to take that from. But it's technically a year-long internship and it like renews at the end of each year. And it's been a great process just being able to like do everything like from scratch. Like I am like education chat is all something that is my own project and that's really special to me from just like reaching out to guests, writing scripts, editing, producing, getting things ready, making things for social media. And it's been really interesting just doing it all on my own and being able to kind of learn from that too. And then I also currently work for the California Faculty Association. They have this program called Students for Quality Education. So during the school year, I'm able to be on campus and do a lot of outreach and tabling and making sure students like know what's going on campus, knowing what their rights are, knowing that they have access to education, and if they feel like they don't have access, we're able to like guide them in certain ways or being able to help them. And that's been super rewarding, just being able to get to know people more on my campus. And then I am also doing a 9-week program this summer where I am doing a human resources internship. And that's kind of what I want to do in the future. So that's my first kind of glimpse into that world. And it's been really fun just being able to like learn through it. My mentor has been amazing, just teaching me several different things about human resources. It's very much like me being able to have a space to learn instead of just like being given like busy work.
I
Yeah.
love that. I very like the educational focus on it. I think education is very important, and I love that you're doing this. You don't know like what you don't know. So like you think you're more limited in certain things, but you're like, no, you can actually do this, or you should try this. And there's just different ways to think outside the box, especially nowadays, trying to find a job or getting hired. I think internships are very important in building your resume, especially being a student, because I mean, depending where you want to work, a bunch of companies either have emphasis on we want work experience or emphasis on what educational like degrees or experience do you have that you could bring into our workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was lucky enough for like education chat and for my internship with the California Faculty Association. It was a pretty like painless process to be able to like apply and be like, here are my skills. But for my summer internship, that was a doozy. Going through like different companies and trying to like prove myself and be like, hey, this is who I am. I'd be a great person to
Yeah.
interview. I want to know on your end, what was your process like from applying to interviewing and then being selected for your internships?
So the process was very much, at first I started off with like, oh, I want this internship or I want this job. I'm only going to apply to these. And I feel like once I got an interview, I felt more confident because I can give you more about who I am and my personality from the way I talk or the way I act, my energy. Whereas a paper, it's just like you're just being compared for what you have to offer on a paper to so many other papers or applications, resumes. People sometimes you just send in your LinkedIn profile now, but yeah, once you get the internship, I feel much more confident in my ability to secure the internship. I would like to say that every internship I've came into like in person, I've had a much higher chance of getting hired than just and I feel more confident too. Like if you just get hired from sending in your resume, you also want to know what you're getting yourself into, who they are. Make sure the job is legit. So, going back to my legislative internship, for that one, when I interviewed in person, it was a bunch of like, they love to ask you questions outside of the work environment to see who you are as a person. Um, and I think that that gets a lot of people off the topic or they don't know how to answer those questions because you come in prepared to answer job related questions, but they really want to know how you react to things, your behavior, how you manage time constraints or management and working with others. So those are the questions I got for my legislative internship, but luckily I would I recommend I took a class specifically. It was like careers in business and econ, and there was like an interview lecture that I learned a lot about. And one thing is like find random questions. Even nowadays you can ask ChatGPT like generate interview questions for me and then have your own like Google Doc and like have a story or an example of each job dot you put to answer. So then when the time comes or there's something similar, you already have an idea of what you want to talk about. And if you have a story to back up, like you can say, I'm very, I'm really good at organizing. And they're like, okay, give me an example. And then you just blank. It'd be really good if you had a story in mind already or an example. And by story, I mean like an example, not just like something made up. But so that was that internship and I did get hired. I was really excited. Um, and then my sales internship, that one, what they did was when I got interviewed, I met the marketing director. He was the one interviewing me, and because he was like marketing and sales. And then I think after he liked how I answered and how our one-on-one went, he introduced me to the other coworkers and people in the firm, like, oh, this is Itzel, like she might be joining us. And I think it's also how you interact and like socialize and like understand cues and also like the chemistry, like how you interact and like vibe with the people within the company. They also take that into consideration. So that was that interview. And I thought like I hadn't really met the team before actually being officially hired, but that was a way of being like, okay, like how is she in this atmosphere? Is she comfortable? How because it's a lot of like everyone helps each other. It's not just like you're in your office and you're doing your own thing. I mean, everyone has their own office and does their work, but there's so much like um conversation and talk and like it's the company culture that I think a lot of companies care for, especially if it's a small company. Bigger companies, it's much harder, but like I said, it all depends on what internship you're looking at, what company you're working for. So yeah, those were my personal experiences. How about you?
Mhm. Yeah, for pretty much most of my internships, they were pretty much the same, where it was like one interview and then like a following offer or things like that. For Education Chat, when I was trying to become the new host, they wanted a little portfolio from me, just like because I had some social media experience and stuff, so I was able to send them like some TikToks I did, some like different like editing things to showcase me. And then when they were coming down to the final couple of candidates, they were like, "We want you to try and create like your own brief like Education Chat snippet." And I was like, "Okay, let's do this." So I just released an episode about video games and college esports, which was really fun. But for my little thing they wanted me to make for my interview, I did kind of the same thing, but just in a shorter, like 3-minute video where I was like, I'm here at an arcade. Video games are like beneficial to students. Here's me talking with a student and me trying to showcase and highlight each of my different things of like, here's me being able to edit things. Here's me being able to be a host and interview someone. Here's me being on site and being able to write a script and do all of that. And I really think that helped because, I'm here today. And that was definitely a fun part
Yeah.
of the interview process. I like how you
Hmm.
mentioned Handshake earlier because I love Handshake personally. Like it's kind of like when you're on the app, it's kind of finicky, but when you're like on it on like a day
Yeah.
and stuff, it's like because you're opening to so many different job opportunities that other people don't have access to see. But just because you're a student, you're able to see these different things and then go through from there. I've mainly had my success from like going on LinkedIn and then going through to the company website. I don't really do easy apply
Yeah.
because I feel like thousands and thousands of people are just like clicking
Yeah.
and then being able to send a resume through. But I really wanted to
Hmm.
make sure like my piece of paper, like we were talking about, is something that represents
Hmm.
me and is able to get me through the door and then selected for that. And I definitely agree with you when it comes to like being able to get an interview for the first time because that's like that lets people see me and being able to answer their questions and know that I would be a pretty good fit and being a good
Yeah.
too because again, they're looking at hundreds of different papers, but there's a reason you got that interview. So I want to know, was there anything on that resume that made you stand out as a candidate or during your interview?
Mm, I think personally, something that makes me stand out a lot, but that's just like my personal experience is the fact that I'm bilingual. I love like when companies hear that I'm fluent in Spanish and English, they really love that, especially in the state of California. It's you just are open to interacting, communicating with like a bigger range of and broad audience. And also what I love about it is like once you learn another language, there's so many other words you can pick up from other languages. Like I'm fluent in Spanish, so when I'm hearing somebody speak Portuguese or Italian, I can pick up on a few words and I can still communicate a little bit. That one, and I would say something else that stands out would probably be like my dedication to my work. Like, I think my mom always raised me with the idea like if you're gonna do something, you're going to do it right. You're not like just whatever, um, and a lot of companies like that when I mention like, oh yeah, I work hard and then like give me an example and then I'll be like, I am working in throughout my college experience and I'm also getting 2 degrees and a minor. And they love to hear that because if you, I think it also depends if you're passionate about what you do. Like, yeah, you could be burnt out because you're doing so many things, but if you find something that you really like and you talk about it and you're excited and then you're dedicated to it, people like can sense your energy or they can see it in your eyes that like you have something that can grow, like your potential, like because so many people have potential, but like, do you have the drive? Do you have the goals and the mindset to try and achieve your dreams, your goals? Like, and I think that is a very important thing to bring into the company because everyone, like, you're just kind of like the source of, we're young, that's our thing. I know a lot of people say if you're looking at interview, um, like tips and questions. A lot of people say to not put your dates of like college graduation or um year, like how old you are and stuff on your resume or on your LinkedIn because it can hurt you since you're like in college and you don't have the work experience they're looking for. But I see it more of as a strength. Like we're young, we bring in a new refreshing light and a perspective to whichever company you work with. Like nowadays, I think we've learned to be more like our generation is more adaptable. Like with AI and all the things going on, we're just like I think we've faced a lot of like adjustments to pandemics and um, yeah, like the internet, the rise of AI and all that. Like Zoom, we're so much more like tech savvy as well. And I see it as a strength. So I do keep my like when I graduated or year I mean I don't put my age out there unless they ask, but you can kind of get a sense from when you graduated college.
Mhm.
Um and yeah, I think those are the things that stand out as a candidate and what gets you hired. But it all depends on the also the industry you're looking for too.
Yeah, I really like that perspective of like
Yeah.
wanting to keep your like graduation year on there because at first I was like, as soon as I graduate, that thing is like going off. But also like
Yeah,
the degree you get today was different from like the degree someone got like 20 years ago.
exactly.
There's different like nuances that people might want to see. It's like if there was something back then that was like, hey, this is a really big like foundation thing, then maybe they'd want someone with more experience back then. But today it's like a lot of things with like we are learning through like technology and we like
Yeah.
learning how to use AI and like my university has been sending out a bunch of emails about like how we're going to be able to like implement AI into like
Yeah.
schooling and that kind of thing. And that might be something valuable for careers in the future. But I think that I definitely stand out as a candidate because I have a lot of work experience in different like fields and sectors. And like it might be things where it's like people don't even think it like applies, but it does.
Yeah.
Like I worked for an after school program for a little bit, just being able to like watch over kids and then like help them with their homework and that kind of thing. But that kind of like just being able to show that like, hey, I'm able to handle like high stress situations. I'm able to like handle a lot of like people at once, being able to know which things I need to be doing at what time, how to follow a schedule, that kind of thing. But I definitely tend to like cater my resume for whatever job or internship I'm applying to. So for like a lot of human resources things, I definitely try to say like I'm up to date on like certain laws and I'm able to speak with people or if I like am able to like interview people. Like I mentioned that a lot for education chat. And that work experience I feel like has definitely helped. And it's given me a lot to talk about within interviews. Because you say like you always want to have like a story or something in mind.
Yeah.
Have that. It's almost a weakness because when people ask me like a simple question of like, can you tell me a time where something difficult was happening and you had to fix it? I have like a million things running through my head. Okay, which one should I choose? But I think that's definitely helped. And then also, just me as a candidate in general, I have a lot of theater experience, and I feel like people like to see that because they don't see it typically.
Yeah.
I have it on my resume, like it is like it has its own little section where I'm an honor thespian, so that just means you've put like 800 hours in to like the world
Oh,
of theater and that kind of thing. And people are like,
that's
that's really interesting.
amazing.
Yeah, and like an improv captain for my university now too. So it's just like even though I have like all this like work experience too, it's like, oh, she's able to like be on a
Yeah.
stage. She's confident in herself. She can memorize lines. Those kind of soft skills are like, things you don't typically see. And I feel like that helps me get an interview a lot because they're like, this is very intriguing. I want to learn more about this person and who she is. But I was so happy
Yeah.
when I was able to like actually like go in to my internship like first day. I got my nice clothes on. And it was definitely an interesting experience just the first day. So I want to know, like, what was the learning curve going into your first internship?
Like I mentioned earlier, you get hit with questions that are like, oh, this, let me put you in this scenario. How are you going to react? And at first, I was very much like, oh, let me think. And then I'd like overthink while I'm trying to think. And then I'm like, you know what? I can't get to the point. I'm just throwing out words right now. And it makes sense to them to see, like, as an individual, like, how are you going to react? What's your behavior? How you work with others? But what made me like more confident and more comfortable is that there's no right answer when it comes to those situations. You just have to answer honestly and don't overthink it. Like, just go with honestly, most of the time, the first answer you think of or you come up with is the one that's going to take you somewhere. And once you start overthinking it, then it gets a little awkward, then you have the time pressure on you. So that was my learning curve, is kind of like building my own confidence within my interview skills. And what helped me a lot too was after taking this careers in econ and business class, was having like a um I listed like my elevator pitch, kind of like what I would say. And when there people are like, tell me about yourself, and then you're just like, oh my gosh, what do you want to know? Like, but you can't really ask, what do you want to know? I mean, you could, but mostly it's better if you just answer with who you are and what you're doing. Um, yeah, so I made a like a little worksheet with that, and then I listed my top three like skills that I would put on my resume. Like if someone's like, what's your most important, or what, give me one. And then I have different answers to that. Here's an example of how I'm adaptable from three different sources. Like I tutored like children, like she was a kindergartner. I tutored them in Spanish, but also I'm adaptable when I babysit with like different children. I'm also adaptable because as a student, this is what I do, and but as a worker, this is what I do. So it's kind of showing like I'm adaptable in all senses, not just in the workplace. Um, and once I like made this little like cheat sheet worksheet for me, I think preparing before any internship is kind of the most important part of the, not internship, sorry, the interview is kind of the most important part, because then when you're in the interview, you already have kind of like all the answers in your head, and you can just go off of like in the moment and in the present, and you're not trying to like fill in the gaps or um, overthink any answer you may have because you're already prepared for it. So that's the learning curve I faced. What about you?
Yeah, so I would say for like it's obviously like a different experience for each internship and
Mhm.
each company and each position, but I'd say like across the board, it's like compared to like a job where it's like you'll have like a manager and they're like, okay, go do this, go do this. At an
Yeah.
internship, there's usually like no one to hold your hand. Like you will have like a mentor and stuff like guiding you along and being like, oh, here's some stuff to do, blah, 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 this. But there's times where you'll just be like, what do I do with myself? And you kind of have
Mhm.
to figure out like, okay, what can I do in this internship to like make it something really important and make it productive and being able to like stand out and stuff. Because like education chat is just like you can see what the previous episodes were, but it's like you
Mhm.
are able to have your own vision now and go through with it and
Yeah.
things like that. Like for my current HR summer internship, like she's been like my mentor has been so fantastic being able to like provide us with assignments that help us like learn and other stuff like that. But like working for the California Faculty Association, it's like you are your own person to being able to like reach out to people and making sure they like get this information and all that. And I was so used to all other job environments where I just have a manager that's like, okay, go clean that, go do this, go do that. But it's like when you're your own boss for a minute, it's
Mhm.
very interesting to have that like freedom and being able to be like individual in that sense. And that's definitely something I had to get over and be like, oh, I need someone to tell me what to do. But I've been able to come very self-motivated in that way where I'm like, okay, I'm in a position, here are my resources. What am I
Yeah.
able to do with that? Because that's what really makes you like thrive and stand out in an internship instead of just like clocking in, sitting at your desk and then clocking out.
Mhm.
Because I always want to be able to make like a difference like that, you know?
I get that. I very much understand that too. And I think it's also, it shows who you are and your work ethic as well. Like if they tell you to go, oh, these are your tasks, you can do this. But if you like actually dedicate yourself and do maybe a little bit better or make it your own, I mean, don't just like do things because you think they're the right way. But, if you kind of add your little twist into, I mean, you're doing it right, but you add, like, you make it more organized or more better looking presentation wise or anything, then that also stands out as like, okay, they're not just doing what I'm telling them to do, but they're going above and beyond. And I think a lot of managers like that and look for that because they don't have to tell you specifically what to do. You kind of know what to do with yourself.
This is around the time where people are going to start applying for like fall internships and things like that. So, to close out this discussion, I want to ask, do you have any other pieces of advice for students like us that are trying to find an internship?
The piece of advice that I would do is the internet is so accessible nowadays that we should use that as like an opportunity and take advantage of it. Like for example, you're getting an internship or an interview with for this job you want, and you've secured the first interview. What I would do is one, research the company, especially their mission and values and their goals, and figure out within yourself, do these values and mission and the goals, do they align with what I want to bring? And if they do, I would kind of tailor my resume or um, my example questions of like skills to that company so then they can be like, okay, this will be a good asset. If we hire you, this is what you're bringing in. You're going to match um, what we're looking for like perfectly. And like I said, just have those examples or those stories ready ahead of time. Another one is if you're lucky enough to find out who is going to be interviewing you. Most of the time, it's a human resource specialist. Or the hiring or recruitment team. If you can like look on LinkedIn or whatever app, sometimes it says this is the person that's hiring. I would look into them, especially like on LinkedIn, like where they went to school, their experience and stuff, and try and connect with them as well or ask them questions. And one of my favorite questions is that my mom taught me was so when my mom was is interviewing for people at work, she told me that one time she was interviewing someone and someone that person asked her, why do you like your job? Why do you like working here? Like, when they're like, oh, do you have any questions for me? And mostly people are asking in regards to the job or like the position or like when are we going to hear back or anything. What this person asked her was, what like wakes you up in the morning to come and continue working for this company? Like, um, and depending on their answer is going to give you like everyone puts on their best first impression, the best first everything, but that's going to give you very much of an insight on, oh, is this company like their motivation, like the people working here, are they happy? Are they doing what they like? Am I going to fit well, especially if it's like a job, not just an internship? Um, I think that's very important. And my mom was like, honestly, like I like was not expecting that. And I had to sit back and like remember like, oh, like this is why I like working here. This is what I do. And I think ever since she told me that, I asked that when like, do you have any questions for me? I'm like, yeah, why do you like working here? Like tell me your personal experience. And also that is helpful in you're standing out with that question. And two, um, you're connecting with the person. And once you like form connections and you kind of like, these people aren't just like robots that are going to clock in and work, which is good if you, I mean, do your work, but also it's what we're unique, our personalities and what we bring into the workplace is what makes us stand out at the end of the day. And the human connection, I think, is very important. And it makes us also like being well-rounded and being prepared for anything in the world. And I think that's my piece of advice is be open-minded. Don't like just expose yourself to the different situations and scenarios or jobs, and you're just going to find what you like, what you don't like. And if you don't like it, it's okay. You're walking away with experience and you're learning what you do like and don't like. And at the end of the day, you're gaining something from it and it's a story you can tell later on. And yeah, those are my final thoughts on interviews and internships. So, what about you?
Yeah, that's great pieces of advice. I love that question you said at the end. I have a little question that I'll tell you in just a second, but I really want to reiterate to like cater your resume to the job. Like it might be annoying to like add on different experience
Hmm.
and things, but even just changing little bullet points to like help you stand out. Like whatever you see on the job description and they're like, here are the like qualifications we want and here are your daily responsibilities. Try and find some time that you did either of those or in like, are you qualified for that or did you have experience in that? And put that in your resume. Because there's also like applicant tracking systems that can just like throw your resume away easy if you don't have enough co like keywords or anything.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I always try to cater to each position, especially if it's a job I want. And then going into interviews, I
yeah.
always try to do the STAR method when I answer a question. Have you heard of the STAR method?
I have not.
So it stands
What
for
is it?
situation, task, action, and resolution. So essentially, going back to the question of like, so tell us a time where, something difficult happened and you had to resolve it. So you always start with explaining the situation, setting up the story, here are the characters, here's what's going to happen. Secondly, you want to do the task. What is currently happening that is like something that is like a no-go, or it's like this is something that needs to be fixed? And like, how are you tasked to best handle that job? So this is you kind of setting up like, oh, and I was able to see this, and this throughout the like situation. And then you go into A, which stands for action. What did you actually do to try and resolve this and make sure like, oh, this is what I did. I was able to like set up this new system and it was able to do that. And then finally, you go into the R for resolution. How did your action go ahead and fix things and then improve things with that situation? So I always try to do STAR when I'm answering any kind of question because it's good to have each of those aspects in the story to help have a really fleshed out answer. And then you mentioned your question of asking, like, what do you do every day? I tend to ask that question too because I'm like, I want to know the culture, like, what do you like about this company? Because it's not
Yeah,
like an interview for you. You are interviewing them to see if this is a company that you want to
yeah.
work for. But I ask a question that knocks a
Mhm.
lot of people off their feet, kind of like off guard. But I ask, was there anything I said throughout this interview or on my resume that makes you hesitant to hire me? And that kind of stops them in their tracks because they have to think
Mhm.
as a candidate and be like, was there anything? And most of the time, people are just like, no, no, you're pretty good. But when there is times where people do are hesitant, there was time where California Faculty Association, I was currently like working for the school in some way, and they were like, hey, we were kind of like concerned that this might be a conflict of interest. And I was able to go ahead and tell them, no, this won't be this because this, and this. But me asking that question and being
Yeah.
able to get that feedback and know, like, is there anything that I can clarify on? In like not a way that like says like can I clarify on this? It's more of just like do you have any hesitancies and kind of knowing like where they see me in that position. So that's a question I always ask and I feel like it has a pretty good success rate so far. But I think that's definitely helped me with a lot of internships, just being able to cater my resume, doing the STAR method when answering questions, and having your own questions to ask and really make you stand out.
I really like that too because it shows that you can take criticism well, and it's like constructive criticism. Like you know where your flaws are and then you can work on it. So that's perfect. I love that. Another thing I thought of right now too was when people ask you like, "Oh, do you have an experience in this?"
Mhm.
and like that's something they're looking for, what I also answer with instead of saying like, "No, I don't really know." I'm like, "Not yet." Like, because it shows that you are open to learning. And if they have the time and the patience to, if they see you as somebody who they want to hire you, and this is like oh, they don't have experience in like coding or something, or whatever description, um, but they see that you are willing to put in your like work and your effort, then and you're like, not yet, but I'm willing to learn if that was like something they were thinking of, like maybe this won't work out, but you're open to like learning that, and you're like, you know what, I learn fast and I can do it on my own time too. If you want me to take a coding class like on my own time, that's something that can most definitely bump up your chances of getting hired for that position. So,
So much for joining me
yeah.
today. Well,
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed talking about our interview experiences, and I hope you have the best success and you find the job you're looking for, and our interview tips helped each other out.
I want to give a big thank you to Itzel for joining me on Education Chat. Every single internship is different. Some are paid and some are not. Some are transformative and others are, let's just say, good learning experiences. But all of them, good, bad, or somewhere in between, offer a chance to learn more about yourself and your work ethic. This is the time to start thinking about applying. Understand what areas you want to grow in and think about some industries that you'd love to work for. Some fall internships are still hiring, and this is a good time to start searching for impactful spring and summer opportunities. At the end of the day, I hope this episode gave you some insight on your next steps in your educational and professional journey. Thank you for gaining experience during this episode of Education Chat, and I hope to chat with you again soon.